My name is Grace. I'm a rising second year at the college. I'm an organic chemistry and pre-law major. I'm actually in the process of applying to pre-law right now. I think HBC gives a really unique perspective on the way that people interact with governments, and what it means to be a citizen within inside a government. So, for example, one text that we read that I thought was really interesting, that added to this was Socrates' text about Crito and his apology. I thought those were really, definitely really interesting in the way that I thought about myself, in relation to the government and in the relation that I react to the government specifically. And that was just something, as someone who's very interested in law and a legal aspect, when it comes to literature, this was something I personally found a lot of enjoyment and really important perspective from. But coming at it through a different perspective, through the side of, oh, well, I'm also doing STEM, I'm also doing organic chemistry. I found that the texts that we read in Human Being and Citizen were something that I could connect to in my everyday life that weren't necessarily major specific or interest specific. I feel like, helped me become a better person. And as you're an incoming freshman and you're required to take these humanity classes, I think they're really important for character development in the way that you are going to understand who you are going throughout your 4 years, throughout the college
It.
year. I learned that there's always room for improvement on myself. Just because I'm in college and now I'm in one of the best universities in the world doesn't mean I'm done growing. Doesn't mean that I've hit my peak. I definitely learned that through this class that every interaction that I have, whether that's interaction with individual people, groups of people, or even the government itself, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to consider in the ways that I interact with these people. We got to a very philosophical side of the class. We took a lot of rigorous notes, which in the moment I was like, man, this is something that is I really have to work for, and I was making me really question myself. But I look back and I'm like, I'm really glad that I did that. I'm really glad that I tried to engage as much as I could in the material. I feel that I came out a better person as a result of that. And I learned, for instance, areas in my life that I definitely could improve, when it comes to just talking to people, talking to friends, and forming those close connections. But I also learned a lot of just random things related to philosophy. We talked about Kant and the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals. That was also something that a book that in the moment I didn't really love, but looking back, I have gained a lot of really important perspectives on that. These are all texts that I think about almost on a daily or weekly basis, ironically enough. I really think about them a lot because they really shape how, I can always do better as a person, or maybe other ways that I'm not really thinking about. Kant had a different perspective than Aristotle, in the way that, are people inherently good? Are they inherently bad? And just the different ways and trying to understand on how to be a good person. And that different perspective, while I didn't always agree with it, was something that made me question, is there really one way to be a good person? Is there really one good, or is good multifaceted and nuanced? But yeah, it's a lot that I felt like I learned from, this class, but I think there definitely is a lot to learn, and there's definitely a lot to learn about yourself. So back in high school, I wasn't able to actually think about the text in such an intimate and, like, hands-on way. That's something that I really uh, tried not to take for granted in HBC, was actually critically examining these texts and taking very thorough and rigorous notes on every part of the text that I was reading. That was probably one of my favorite assignments. But something that I also found a lot of use of was our Socratic method. We almost never had any lectures in class. And because of that, I was able to hear and learn through a lot of different people, perspectives that I may have never even considered. There's one specific person in my class who was really strong about their opinions. And, I was like, wow, this is really encouraging me to talk more in my class and, stand up more for what I believe, but also learn a lot more from other people. This perspective that this person had, for example, was not always like the most popular opinion or something that someone would easily come to, but it was something that definitely caused me to think really critically about, do the beliefs I hold currently, are they rooted and grounded, in ways that I can defend, in ways that make logical sense. Is there reasoning behind, the way that I think about these things? And so talking to those people, talking to the people maybe I disagree with, having those really intimate, in-depth notes that I took on these texts, these ended up being some of my favorite aspects and moments in class and outside of the classroom, just because I was able to really dive really deeply into these materials. But I guess, yeah, like HBC is really for anyone. There's and humanities in general, the humanities are really for anyone. There's a reason why you have to take them in your first year, because they really get you to think critically about what you're learning, not just in that class, but in your life. It's also very interdisciplinary. There are things that, ironically enough, that I was thinking about philosophically in my chemistry classes. Why do I continue to study chemistry? It's, of course, I'm interested in it, but there is, a philosophical side of it, the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of constantly challenging my beliefs that, maybe I wouldn't necessarily consider that side if I didn't take these humanities courses. They're very interdisciplinary and they're really for any interest, and any major. So it's classic U Chicago in my opinion. But yeah, yeah.